Lucienne,
Hi.
how are you? Oh, what a pretty outfit. How are you today?
Well, I'm good. I'm outdoors at the Bailey House because I did volunteer for May Day today, but
Oh, it's so nice.
my shift is flexible, so I'm just sitting in the grounds here and going to enjoy the presentation and then go back to finish my shift.
Wonderful. Well, you're
Uh,
definitely the guest of honor because, correct me if I'm wrong, Maui tomorrow is a party in the MPDES.
no, they're
Oh
not.
no, okay.
Correcting me because you are
I should
wrong.
probably know that.
Yeah,
So many
Sierra Club
litigants,
is.
but yeah, you're
Sierra Club
definitely a
is.
leader, and
Yeah,
I want you to know this. You're a Maui Nui board, right?
I
Or you?
am. I'm
Okay,
on the
yeah.
Maui board. Yes.
They
Yeah.
actually seed funded this work. I don't know if you know that. And we've transferred to a new nonprofit. So, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
reporting
I
back to my
remember.
boss.
Yeah, I remember when we were discussing that the Limu solution, and I did send off a bunch of invites this morning to John Starmer, from Maui Nui, and Tova Calendar, who's on the board, and Ekolu Lindsay, who's on the board, and is interested in West Side things, and as well as some people from the Sierra Club board. Sierra Club is one of the four lead plaintiffs in that suit.
Oh, great.
And I also contacted Surf Rider folks, Maureen, and who else? Hannah Bernard, Hawaii Wildlife Fund. Those are all our co-plaintiffs. And
Great.
Lance Collins for the WUMPA for the West Maui Preservation Association. But I didn't send anything out until like 8 this morning. So
Totally fine.
anyway, we'll see if anybody joins from that. But I sent out to about, I don't know, 15 people or something this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've got some lemur researchers, and I think we have a quorum to go ahead and start because anyone else that joins probably has already heard the story. So I wanted to ask you, what would be your ideal duration to spend on this where you are right now?
Well, now I assume that there's like a slideshow or something that's
Yeah,
going to be kind of some presentation of some findings.
yeah.
And how long is that? Is that about 20 minutes or
I can really make it as long as you want. 20
half an
minutes is a
hour?
good target.
Yeah, 20 minutes is good for attention span. And
Okay,
then,
and then I
some
can get your
time,
feedback maybe.
yeah, then some time for Q&A and everything. So I don't know, 45 minutes, something. So there's
Cool.
plenty of time for everything. How does that seem to you?
That sounds just perfect. And while I get set up here, if these two fine gentlemen could um, briefly, how about this? How about I just dive in, if it's okay, and we'll introduce you as you come into the story. Is that okay? And then, oh, wait, do a quick introduction while I'm getting set up, and then we'll expand it later. Let me just pull up the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, well, I can start. My name is Dean Callahan. I'm a PhD biologist. I've spent most of my PhD, post-PhD work working with algae, specifically with turf scrubbers. I've built several research type units. I worked with Walter Adey, the inventor of ATS, for several years at the Smithsonian. He's now emeritus. I met Travis, I think in 2014 or 15,
15,
so
yeah.
15. So we've known each other
Wow.
for just
When
over 10 years.
Yeah, when you were just a wisp of a youth,
Ha.
Yeah.
Travis.
Before I was 60.
Yeah, right. Well, we all remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have Joey, who is one of my dear friends, former steward of the Holy Water Ahupua'a in Kipahulu and board member for kaiaction.org. Hi, Joey. You're muted, but that's okay. We'll tap you in later. And Ed, and then I can dive in.
Hey, I'm Lucienne, and I'm currently serving as president or chairperson, we call it, of the Sierra Club Maui group. But I'm also, I think I'm actually still president. We haven't had elections yet of the board of Maui Nui Marine Resource Council. I'm one of the co-founders of the council way back 20 years ago, and very, very, very interested in all things that have to do with water in any form, and what lives in water and what can, help us better care for water.
Great.
My name's Ed Ozenbaugh, and I've spent 40 years doing data modeling and portfolio management systems in software for all kinds of different companies and nonprofit entities and government agencies, including the Iowa Department of Ecology here. That I worked on the system that reports MPDES permit information to Washington, well, actually to Virginia, to the mainframe for EPA. I met Dean, Dr. Callahan, when we were both working for a software company in 1982.
I wasn't a doctor
Wow.
then.
And he wasn't a doctor then, he was a student. We're doing our overnight backups. And both of us have, spent a lot of time in the software industry. And then Dean moved over to the PhD, or went back to school in the 90s, got his PhD, and he did his doctorate work on yeast. And after his postdoc, he met up with Walter Addy at the Smithsonian, and Dr. Addy basically became his mentor, and wanted Dean to really take over anybody talking about ATS. He's Dr. Addy is an expert on coral reefs, and that's his main thing. So ATS is sort of a side thing, although he patented it after he cleaned up the aquaria at the Smithsonian in the 70s, is where he invented the technology. And so he sort of imbued Dean with, Dean handles all the inquiries that have to do with the ATS technology. So we started doing that in 2000, and I've worked with Dean on doing data modeling and financial modeling and other kinds of software things related to the various projects that he's worked on, including when he went to 2 years in Germany and was a visiting scientist at one of the German research institutes, and now has a lot of people that he trained around the world implementing ATS in a lot of countries. I helped with the data modeling on the paper that Dr. Addy and Dr. Callahan did, where we basically said we can kill all the dead zones in the world with a very small acreage of ATSs in every watershed in the world. And that paper has been cited by a lot of other researchers. And so I've been very interested in this, and I plan to help write it, the textbook with Dr. Blurch and Dr. Callahan, to make it a college level course in ATS technology. And I am very interested in writing a book about the history of ATS.
So I'm a complete generalist. I don't know what ATS means. My knowledge of reefs and those kind of systems is of a very general nature.
Great. It's designed for you, this presentation. It's going to be more like a
That's
story.
what Travis is going to be covering.
Yeah. So
I might just mention I'm sitting here in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm not actually in Hawaii. So.
Yeah, I figured you guys were all somewhere on the mainland and just zooming in.
I'm in Ames, Iowa.
God bless you all. I hope the weather is treating you well.
It's nice and rainy here.
Yeah, well, we're having a potentially cloudy May Day here. I'm at a Lego festival at the local historical society, but I'm outdoors, and if it starts to rain, I'll walk towards my car.
I should say one of my interests has also been working with some people here in Iowa. We have a huge nutrient problem with all of our watersheds because of confined animal feeding operations. And so we would like to implement ATS and get the government here interested in, or somebody interested in, cleaning up our waterways, because we're drinking a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus that we don't need. So we really hope that this, you guys, any progress you can make in Hawaii would help us make the argument here in Iowa. So.
Right on.
Great. Yeah. Well, our litigation, which better defined waters of the U.S., I think was helpful in some way, although it's probably being clawed back under the current EPA and the current administration. But it did help clarify things, and who knew, we never planned to go all the way to the US Supreme Court, but we did. So there we
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Great.
What an accomplishment.
Yeah.
That's great.
Joey, you're welcome
Yeah,
to introduce yourself, or I can introduce you when you come into the story. It's entirely up to you.
I'll wait for your introduction.
Okay, it's
You're
quite an
better than
introduction,
this,
so
Slippy.
thank you, everyone. I'm just going to go around the room. My impression of you, defensible statements. Lucienne is probably the top environmentalist in Maui. Dean Callahan is the top expert in turf scrubbers, tied with Ed. And Joey is the former steward of the Ahupua'a, where people used to do like pilgrimages to get their holy water for like all the churches in Maui called Pualu. So, yeah, esteemed, honored guest, and I will just dive in if that's okay.
Yes, go.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Share. Okay, can everyone see my
Not quite
screen?
yet. I'm waiting for my screen. Ah, there we go.
Yes. Attached
Okay,
algae freshwater stream. Limu.
great.
Mm.
So thank you so much. I'm going to tell this as a story and it goes all over the place and just you can't plan this stuff. Someone is, but not me. But yeah, there are two interlinked solutions to these discharges, which is to make it into reuse water and also to solve the nutrient problem, which protects both reefs and plant growth and long-term reuse. So it's like the two core issues. And then, of course, you don't want to go into the groundwater or the ocean, but these two things need to happen first. So this MPDES lawsuit is just about the best opportunity imaginable. The timing is so uncanny to actually refute any case that there's no solution. And also, you can't reuse it until you disinfect it. You also probably want to do that before it goes in the ocean. And yeah, only the Lahaina municipal plant is doing that. Kahului used to use chlorine. They ceased in 2018. There's no evidence that Kihei has ever disinfected where it's going in Cove Park.
I
Some
thought that Kihei did use UV, that they were the youngest plant, and so they had a more complete UV disinfection than Lahaina did, Lahaina being an older plant. And then Lahaina, because of the lawsuit, had to, buck up and install more UV units. So you're saying that they never did UV
I will
disinfection in
show you the
Kihei?
data,
Wow.
and this is really,
Jeez.
in my mind, the core of the problem.
Hmm.
You're in good company. I've seen about 20 healthcare professionals. I've spoken to the DOH disease outbreak people, the state's top toxicologist. Megan Daler is quoted in the paper, and DEM is stating in hearings that it's disinfected, but
Yeah.
the data shows it's not.
Wow.
And I recently got a meeting with Member Cook, chairman of
Yeah.
the Wastewater Committee. Joey
Yeah.
was actually in the room for it. He came over
Yes.
to pick up some antibiotics, ironically, because he couldn't get in to see a doctor and it was indicated. But yeah, it's a broad, I call it mass something. It's worthy of a good paper that literally I've not found one human being that knew this until I told them, except there's a paper from Steve Perabaculi that actually was written for Maui Nui in 2016
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's in there. Yeah.
Wow. And I've read that paper many times, and somehow that never popped out at me.
Yeah, me neither
That's
until
amazing.
2021, but we're getting
Huh.
ahead of ourselves. It's all in the
Okay.
story. It's
Well,
all in the story. So let
I'll
me
let you go.
dive in.
Mhm.
So, boy, Ed, you are good at segues because it starts in about 1983 when I was literally, don't laugh, my brother's muskrat trapping assistant. So 1800s, we had a wooden school. We grew all our food. Mom made a lot of our clothes. Like people are like, oh yeah, the 80s in Indiana. I'm like, yeah, 1880s. Like I dare to find anyone who has a NASA and Sandia history that has also been a muskrat trapper. But it's real. It's like there's a lot to it actually. And yeah, that may be actually when I got exposed. And I've since found that I'm literally a mutant. I have a certain mutation that makes me functionally immunocompromised, and then I have a very unusual response to infections. And I haven't, I'm, it's, there's something to it, but yeah, I was just uniquely programmed to get sick and to get really intense about trying to solve it. But yeah, this is the house my parents built. You can see our house here, and I'll tell you, my uncle's house is here. The tiny home village, if you will, was
Hmm.
here. You can see their wastewater plant. The river flows this way. And so I got really sick, like really sick. Like I was afraid I was going to see, I had eczema. I was afraid I was going to see my bones. It was just eating into my fingers. I had a smell. It was very profound. And my dad is quite a special person. In 1984, we were doing a dye test, and my uncle's house septic tank came right out, right here into this stream. And there was like just a pipe into the river. I bet it was just primary treatment. I'm guessing. And I'll tell you, Lucienne, the systems in Maui are about the same.
Huh.
It, like
Oh,
visually looks similar
Yeah,
to what
no,
wow.
this was in the 80s
I totally
because they
believe you.
are.
Yeah, they're
So,
from that era. Yeah.
yeah, so it's also resonant, and we made the conclusion that we had to move. Like it was so like something we couldn't solve. And I was like, oh, put it in here. It comes out here. I was like, wow, there's really no resistance from my uncle's septic tank to the stream. I saw the red dye with my eyes. So it was, that'll be 42 years ago, around now, actually. It was 1984. And I had a very intense dream. I can actually pin a day, May 25th, 1984. And it turns out some of these pathogens, if you have this mutation, the jury's out on what all this means, actually can have even more profound responses. Did you know that some of these pathogens are evolved to basically hijack your nervous system? First, they go for the tryptophan, which makes you not really rest, the serotonin, which makes you kind of withdraw, and then they go for the MAOs, which hoover up things like neurotransmitters, including DMT. So suddenly your dreams are more vivid. And
Hmm.
it was the 80s in Indiana. Like it was like Stand By Me. 8-year-olds were out smoking cigarettes. There were so many factors, and I had this dream space event. I don't think it was anything external other than just a really stressed system. I've actually looked into the science. We'll save that for another day. But it was a vision, 1984, May 25th, and it had three components: plants, wastewater, space. It was like something a kid would think of to fill in a gap for like praying for a solution, right? So I really took it to heart. And by the way, as soon as I hit school, they're like, oh, we're sending you to the university. And they're like, we're sending him to a special school. And my mom's like, I can't drive an hour twice every day to take you to school. So I did the best as I could in public school. And yeah, who knew that GT teachers were teaching like controlling your heartbeat and meditation and breathing techniques and all this stuff to like kids in Indiana in 1984? I
Huh.
took it really to heart. I was
Amazing.
waiting to play. I know this is like storytelling. I was waiting to play, what's it called? Oregon Trail on an Apple IIe. And I was like, I wonder if I can get my heart to meet that cursor. Full Of course, I wanted to get on there so bad because I wanted to solve this problem. That's how I was thinking back then. Full grand mal seizure. Bless her heart, the teacher immediately grabbed me and dragged me across the whole school during the seizure to the doctor's office. Bless her heart, that's not what you're supposed to do. So they immediately
Yeah.
rotated me to the hilt, which is also not what you're supposed to do. It's not systemic
Wow.
until you have two. So it was just a comedy of errors. I probably still had some active infection, and it was just quite a wild ride. But my mom fought so hard. She's like, he's not epileptic. He had an episode. We don't want him permanently medicated. And the first thing that I basically remember, my dad was a carpenter. The convention he was secretary was in Honolulu, and we ended up in Maui. That was like
Yeah.
first memory. Swam at the reefs in Napili and just was like, oh, not everywhere is broken. I just put it in my heart. I was like, okay, well, I get the picture. I'm going to take this back to my river. That was the message. That was November 20th, 1985. I'll never forget it. I don't have to tell Lucienne what it looked like in Apelia in 1985.
Oh, yeah, it's
It
nice.
was every color of the rainbow. And I just followed that. Like one half was the idea from the dream, the other half was what was achievable. Boy, did I go to like six schools, graduate mechanical engineering from arguably the top public university before Google, before AI. I mean, you had to go to the library. They launched Google the month after I graduated. Then I went to Maui in 1999 and I saw the decline. I was like so so moved that that wasn't fixed. And the main response was, my God, these poor people, not poor, but I felt empathy for the Native Hawaiians who were witnessing this. And I just was like, wow, the mission has completely changed. I was really moved. That was 1999. Immediately applied to grad school. This place was a match. Plants wastewater space. Bioserve Space Technology does space payloads. And they looked at me with a straight face and said, we have a gap on the space station and the space shuttle. We have 14 months. Would you like to participate in the nutrient delivery system for a space flight plant experiment? I was like, yes. That was 2001. 14 months later, I was in Florida watching a launch. You know, there were inputs to this, like seeing a whale jump in Ma'alaya, and I was like, basically silently, not telling anyone I was fighting for Ma'alaya, for Maui in Florida in like 2002. And I love the idea that my little reuse greenhouse was going over your longitude every 90 minutes. I think that's fun. Uh,
Nice.
Graduated with Master of Science in Air. I'm like, I have to read it. Aerospace Engineering. And yeah, I that space flight experiment, we stop here, it failed. There were too much nutrients, even an optimized nutrient solution. That's
Mm.
me. And I was like, well, if that's perfect, yeah, that's going to be a problem with reuse, like what I understand wastewater to be. And honestly, I put the plant as in reuse solution on a shelf. I I thought it was unviable that you had to solve the nutrient solution. And it was like, I remember watching the live feed and just hoping that I would see a sprout. It never came. Uh, the nutrients actually solidified into little crystals. The seeds did not even germinate. So
Wow.
it's like a core technical lesson that at some point that's going to catch up with you. That in fact, there is a limit of diminishing return on nutrients. And oh, by the way, very relevant to the current controversy on the NPDES permit. So graduated from there, immediately fresh out hire at NASA, Ames Research Center. I saw this job. I was like, okay, this is a joke. Systems engineer for the Space Station Biological Research Project, and just had broad experience on so many life science flow diagrams. I've seen a lot of flow diagrams, so many lessons about how all these space station modules have to, like, the mass balance cannot be off anywhere. Like, if the mass balance is off anywhere, it's going to add up, the system will fail. And the message was, well, if it's not plants or not just plants, I was basically doing espionage. I was like, the solution is in this research program. Had a really strong idea at a festival when I saw this display of microalgae and wrote down these feverish ideas before a surgery because I had a spine injury and was the first inventor. Oh no, we're not watching a commercial. Anyways, the link is going to be in the presentation. It's a floating bag with microalgae in it. It's basically, I call it a mega cell. They call it Omega, offshore membrane enclosure for growing algae. I was the only one to make them for a year. We got number one, 100% score in the Public Interest Energy Research Grant Cycle in 2009. Um, People were interested in converting sewage to jet fuel. Very interested but it had a fundamental flaw. You're capping the water column. Just terrible idea for Maui. Boy, was I trying. But we patented it, and this lady, she's African. Okay, her name is Tsege, and the way you say it is Sege. Coolest lady ever. So smart. She's from Eritrea. I'm sure that her family grew her food just like mine. And she was probably the smartest person I knew at NASA. And her job was this. She worked for SETI. Her job was to receive and manage any live, currently living alien cultures. That was her.
Wow.
And they
Wow.
gave her me and the algae. So I think that's funny. But these are my original Omega systems. And it was quite something because, of course, I had this vision a few years later, and there's this twist, which is that NASA had independently developed a membrane enclosure program. They just put it on the water, and it was quite something. And an experience I'll never forget. I was on the project from 2008 to 2009, and then kind of catastrophe hit because my husband fell ill, and it was like I couldn't crack the code on accessing care because of the Defensive Marriage Act, and it was quite a bit. It was a real challenge. You can imagine choosing between no pathway to healthcare and your dream, or a pathway to healthcare because we were just poor San Francisco people, government work. So yeah, I made the call to leave NASA. Like the last thing I want to do, if you can imagine getting number one in this grant and being faced with that decision. And yeah, the private company that was a friend of a friend um, just didn't offer us what they had maybe improperly offered, which was healthcare and a job. But they went on to develop stuff, and we got on a plane and didn't really have a plan. Of course, it's hard to live in San Francisco without an income. I had a spine injury at the time, which I couldn't get treatment for. And we got to Maui with about $250 cash and maxed out credit cards and a van for a week. And we went as far as we could, and we ended up not really sure what to do in Kipahulu because one of my messages was to go back to this shrine that had like reached out to me around 2000. And we met Auntie Nani and Uncle Joey, who's in the call on the streets of Kipahulu. So Joey,
Yeah.
did you?
Yes.
Yeah, and it
Yes.
was so serendipitous. They're like, come over. And of course, they have stewardship of this property that's like the holy water, which we then would bathe in. And we were just like, okay, well, not everyone in the world is awful. How refreshing. I mean, it was really like that. And it was so fundamental. It was like full circle. I'm like, this is like my little town in Indiana in the 80s. People are still waving at each other. It was so remarkable. And we were at the triangle with the lens like with these just the most wonderful people. It was a true miracle. None of them knew that what we had just been through. And gosh, I was like, wow. I've never looked back. I'm like, yeah, this is the place. It's not the landscape, it's the people. Just I've never looked back. So yeah, welcome to Maui. Um
Yes.
and
Yes.
uh I've been back and forth a couple times, but yeah, 2000. So, Jake passed in 2015. I had pretty much, you know, failed in, we all failed in gaining access to healthcare, and it was just kind of chaotic. So in 2015, I called Dean. I looked him up. In fact, someone I had introduced into NASA said, oh, yeah, everything in the report they're comparing the omegas to is attached algae. I was like, I've never heard of that. And in fact, I worked at the algae farm in Kihei, and microalgae is not trivial to work with. It's very hard to get cells separated from water. Just think of that mechanical process, far from trivial. So, yeah, I called Dean. I've never looked back. Um, and I registered this company simply
Hey.
because I wanted to give out business cards at a Maui Nui meeting, and I didn't think it would be ethical if I hadn't registered it. That's the origin of this company, which is to be viable to present at Maui Nui. And I think that was February of 2018, after just Dean investing all this free time and educating me. So, yeah, basically my career is a subset of Maui Nui. And yeah, I went to the deal in our office to Skippy Howe and I said, take me to your Limu. And he said, okay.
That's pretty good.
He said, meet
Yeah.
me at this parking lot at 8 a.m. I'm not that well. And I get into his little truck, I think it was a Toyota, and we just started driving and tell me where we were going. We went to the way stop on the way to Hana. It starts with a P, I don't remember what it's called. And he was like, follow
Puaka.
me. Yeah. He was like,
Puka.
follow me.
Yeah, poor
And
yeah.
yes, I said,
Wayside
I
Park.
have slides on. And he proceeded to take me on like rock climbing. It was
Oh, did you
so
go to
insane.
Waihui? Did you go to Waihui Stream?
I actually believe that is the name. So, and we
Yeah.
got there, and it was this long stretch of just pure covered in stream limu. It was absolutely
Mhm.
beautiful. Um, these images are not from that day, but they're just examples that I've accumulated over the years. But basic idea is the island is an integrated organism. These are just the cells that line the vasculation. And like so many cells that line the vasculation, they do a lot of work. And my understanding, there's a balance between the marine limu and the freshwater limu. And the process will happen somewhere. It's just best to move that process into a controlled burn, just like controlled burn for fire, because it's potential for a process. It's like dog bowl technology. It's going to happen. It's either in the ocean or on the shore is the basic idea. And yeah, it's just so neat. And there's so much to it because it's associated with taro and lohi, and there's
Fish,
basically
the
all
fish,
those
that's what the
systems
fish graze
require it.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so beautiful and elegant because it's what nature does when surface waters are collected and processed before discharge into the ocean. It's just how it's done. And it's right in the middle of my NASA training for ecological life support systems because you're just looking for the right organism to do a task. And then you just create a system for them. They don't know they're in a system. And at some level, this is like engineering life forms that used to function perfectly but now need help. So that's the basic idea. I'm being a little long-winded, I'll be faster. So 2019, I testified, had a bottle of Limu, same culture that Sandia now has. I met a benefactor who funded Flush Aware through Maui Nui. Here's the paper for Steve Perabicoli saying the wastewater is not disinfected but should be. And here's the
Mhm.
data that Tom Cook had not seen, but it is that line at the
Mm.
top, Lucienne, is a
Yeah.
greater than. So we
Yeah.
don't know what they are.
Wow.
And the lines at the bottom are reuse, which is what would be considered safe to be in contact with. And that purple line is every once in a while. It really should be effectively zero to be reuse water. And the idea is that if it's going on the in the garden, it should be the same going in the ocean, which may as well be the shower. And oh, we've got Mark from Sandia joining us. Um, don't see him yet. But I'm gonna. Oh, there he is. Hi, Mark.
Hydromentia, not Sandia.
I'm just about done with the presentation. You're just in time to add to what you've already heard, I'm sure. But let me just buzz through this disinfection stuff because I know I've gone a little long. But yeah, when I started Flush Aware, I got data for Kihei. I said, you gave me the wrong data. I want what's going out of the plant, not what's going into the plant. And Lucienne, let this set in. There's no way that what they call a spill physically could have a higher measurement than what's going into the ocean intentionally. I want you to let that
Yes.
sink in.
Wow.
Jeez.
And
So
that is like
because the
core gaslighting.
the spill isn't untreated
A
effluent.
spill is untreated, but I just want to be very clear. These measurements in the top are greater than. So what that means is in order to actually detect anything higher than this level, you have to dilute it. And the DOH allows them to use just undiluted wastewater. And the test is like these little wells, and they count them and multiply them. And the wells have a limit. And if they're all positive, then a dilution could maybe uncover what it really is. So untreated wastewater will have other properties. It may have less dissolved solids, but I just want to let this sink in. If you measured untreated wastewater with this same test method, it's physically impossible to get a higher measurement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How do they do their, well, I can ask you these questions, I guess, when it's
No,
questions.
ask. You're the guest of honor.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we do a stream testing program, the Haiku Community Association, and I got the funding for it. And I'm not the technical expert. We work with Dr. Chris Schuler from UH Manoa, who's a haiku resident. But we got our own little lab machine set up in Twin Falls to do, it's an IDEX machine to test for E. coli and Enterococcus. And so we take samples and, do that kind of testing where you seal them in the little, blister packs, and then you put them under the UV light and read the CFU concentrations. And, what we've found is that, boy, it can really vary, depending on how storm events, turbidity, even really low flows can really increase the E. coli and Enterococcus level, just because I guess whatever is flushed in doesn't have enough water to neutralize it and spread out the clusters there. So I'm just curious with this, what kind of, do you use that same kind of testing machine, or is there some sort of big lab kind of thing that the county uses?
That is a great question. I'll answer it with a fact, which will explain what this means. So DOH underground injection control has certain testing standards that are different than, say, the federal NPDES testing standards. The federal NPDES testing standards say you must dilute the sample until you actually determine the actual number of colony forming units. For some reason, the state UIC program effectively lets them off testing twice a year with no dilutions. And for context, the largest measurement that we have found for those MPDES permits is Honouliuli in Honolulu. It's 100 million colony forming units per gallon.
Geez,
So
well,
there's
that's
no
a
way
treatment
to
plant,
know
right?
if these are the same.
We sued, Sierra Club sued over that treatment plant years
Yeah,
ago.
it's so that's by far the most
Just Pilau.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Honolulu, Sand
Pilau.
Island is not much better, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory is civilization is inversely proportional to building height, and it's like really there if strangers wave at each other. Like that's like civilization to me, but I digress. I want to get through this. So
So you're saying that um, the testing here, which is done twice a year, follows the DOH standards,
which is
and
mhm.
so they don't attempt to dilute them so that they can really tease out the true amount of CFU. They just do kind of a more generalized view or something. I'm trying to I'm not really a
Yeah, I just
super
want to be
technical
clear.
person.
They're testing for one pathogen indicator and no actual pathogens
I
twice a
see.
year with a
Yeah.
method that typically does not actually capture the actual value. So for me, that's effectively no data.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So is that why you say there's no data for that for
There
that
is
facility?
just this data twice a year. And when
Hmm.
it's this line at the top, it's like it's bigger than this. We don't know what it is. And that for
Yeah.
me is it says
Well, that's a
something, but
red
you're not
flag.
actually getting a measurement that's
Yeah.
capturing it. So it's nuanced. And here's the real scientific phenomenon. I want to reiterate 10 doctors, 10 nurses, state top toxicologists tried to interrupt me and correct me. The DOH disease outbreak people look at me like a ghost. They didn't know. I want you to let that sink in. So I'm digressing. I'll really get through this
I'm not
disinfection stuff.
surprised. I'm not surprised by that. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like a mass ignoring.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a complex problem, and if you acknowledge it's there, then you have to start doing something about it.
I
If you
think the
just
lawyers
say,
might have something to do with it.
yeah, yeah, if you just say, well, no, really, that person just misinterpreted it, then you don't, you can just sit on your Acoli and do what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's where it gets really exotic, I would say. Megan Daler is quoted in the paper saying it is disinfected. Here's the data. It's just, it's either systemic intentional disinformation or something else.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Well,
insult anyone, but this is easily refutable.
Well,
So kind of gets it right.
Pericoli's original analyses, which were done in 2011, he did analysis of the Kihei, the Lahaina, and the Kahului system, and at that time, his information was that the Kahului system had UV disinfection. Of course, does that kill E. coli and Enterococcus? I don't know.
Okay,
You know.
so here is the calorie chart up until 2018. A very stringent chlorine disinfection.
Right. Oh, they used tons of, and they had that chlorine tank. We sued over that one too. Surfrider did, but
Right. So
we couldn't get anywhere. But yeah, it's right in the tsunami zone, a big chlorine tank. Yeah.
yeah, so our
Great
new
planet.
lieutenant governor was
Mhm.
managing director, I believe, when the decision was made by the DEM director, who I believe is now in prison.
Yeah,
And,
Stanton. Yeah. Yeah.
they just turned off all disinfection treatment without telling anyone.
Jeez.
Mm.
They didn't. Okay, Lucienne, let this sink in. There's no record they even told Tasha Kama.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I don't
no
know if she would
public.
have even understood what it meant.
Yeah,
She
and
never
this
got
was
the Lahaina thing. She thought that that we should listen to the mayor, that the county was just going to spend a lot of money for no reason on Lahaina. Tasha was one of our toughest nuts to crack, and we never cracked it. Her and Yuki Lei were just impenetrable, that there was no problem with Lahaina.
right.
So
So
yeah.
I just want to let it sink in. This is 6 years into the SCOTUS case, and so
Yeah.
I can't rule out that they were just showing him who's boss or something like that. I have no evidence of that, but
Well,
it's
it
weird.
was deny, deny, deny. In fact, I don't know if uh it was a guy that worked for the CZM program, Thorne Abbott. He reviewed the special management area permit for the Kahului plant when they wanted to relocate the um, injection wells, and the county said, "Oh yeah, there's no SMA permit needed. There's no environmental assessment needed. Well, we're just essentially substituting one existing well for another. They're just the same thing." And he said, "Oh no, 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 they're not." And he dug up some of the data, kind of like probably what you were looking at. He lost his job because he didn't go along with the party. They fired him. They made up some trumped up charge and fired him. So
Yeah.
Wow.
this has been swept under the table for a while.
Yep. So I want to be sensitive to time, and hello, Mark, if you will tolerate me just finishing, and then we will duly introduce you, if that's okay. So of course I dig this up. I close with Kelly. I'm like, hey, we need a law.
Yeah,
This should be illegal immediately. And I sent her this email. She did not consult with me. She copied it and pasted it and filed it, and there was a hearing. I was like, well, I was actually kind of joking, saying that
yeah,
wastewater should meet drinking water standards, but okay. It actually precipitated some really good conversations because yeah, that's what it should do in an ideal world. But yeah, we now have maybe world's first requirement for 100% reuse, which is basically disinfection by
Yeah.
2029. Yeah, you were there for that. You actually I think you might have been my only like earnest testifier in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
Two thumbs
Well,
up.
the kind, I'm sorry, the signals are going off for May 1st, but the Stufflebean, our new water director, actually worked in San Diego where they do toilet to tap.
Yeah, that's the
They
long-term
treat.
goal, some form
Yeah,
of zero discharge.
yeah.
But Senator McKelvey introduced a statewide version. It did not get a hearing. Um, and that's just the intro. We're gonna go real quick. So the Limu solution, of course, met Dean in 2015. By 2024, I had a contract with Sandia. I'll be honest, I think they just wanted the culture that that I showed in. Um, he was like, "Yeah, give me the culture," and then whatever. But I'm minimizing it. But they were very interested in that culture. They have it. They've characterized it. I collected it with DLNR supervision. I didn't charge for it. But like that stream Limu from East Maui might be like I actually don't know. Maybe Mark does, but it has some status and data inside Sandia, which I don't know if you know, Lucienne. They also manage stuff like the U.S. nuclear arsenal. So yeah,
For the name,
big
I don't really know
agency.
what they do. Yeah,
But yeah, so we developed
Sandia Labs. I've heard of.
yeah, we developed a community scale solution, which was just a small one for Malaya, which I managed
Hmm.
that project for 3.5 years. And then recently we started a research project with this new nonprofit, kaiaction.org. Um, and we have, this is the big drum roll, we have a motion to enter technical evidence that says they cannot make the case there is no solution.
Oh, is
Uh,
this on the Lahaina NPDS that you had that one?
yes, we have a
Did you let our attorneys know about it? Because this is the first time
no,
I'm hearing
you
about it.
are the person that I am rolling this out to.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that
Nice.
that's something that we have three attorneys at Earth Justice who have been working on this. Marty Townsend, David Hankin, who worked on it from the beginning, or well, yeah, from the beginning, and then Mahesh Cleveland, who is a Maui boy, and has worked on stuff, you know, related to Maui.
Great.
So yeah.
So we have worked on this. We've spent about a quarter of our budget, and it's meant to be a defensible filing. And there's
Who
another
drew it up
filing
for
that
you?
the county could conceivably file to
Uh-huh.
adopt this plan. And the plan is simply to take the two existing municipal scale facilities, which have proven that the removal can meet the very stringent requirement, which is about 90% reduction from where we're at. It's 6 years to scale up a uniquely Maui version based on two established municipal scale systems. It's established, it's proven, it just has to be adapted. And it is so, I will say it's annoyingly simple. It's so simple that people may not believe it. It's 10 acres of concrete. I don't know how many acres of roads we have, but it's a small Limu road. You don't even have to introduce culture. So in a way, it's just an altar and the organism appears like a dog bowl. And it's just a human-made stream bed, optimized. You can have recirculating or one long pass. It's typically linked to a reservoir. Um, some of the pumps I've looked at are quote unquote waterfall pumps. So it's really just a optimized expansion of stream ecosystems with a focus on this organism, like a living life support system. There are 1,000 considerations, but the idea is you just create a volume in which the optimal species can do its job. In this case, can be only described as like biological alchemy, and it just converts things you don't want into this wonderful biomass. And here's the punchline, which is Sandy is interested in this for biofuels, and they have spreadsheets of all the wastewater, and it's just good math for a very significant form of biomass. And we have two papers that are uniquely developed to apply this to the math of the exact compliance challenge in Lahaina. And we also have project sheets for UV, and we have a letter from member Johnson that he is interested in receiving those donations, confirming it's not disinfected. We started a nonprofit just to transfer donations to the county through MOA uh, to just pay for the UV work. You get a date on paper, which is a big advantage. And just thrown in that out of
Mm.
this process has Auntie Nani, the
Yeah.
she is a whole pie like the mayor. Can you confirm that?
Yes.
And
It's family.
Oh, so you're one of the mayor's cousins, yeah?
Yeah, she is. She is.
the
She is.
mayor
Oh,
Nani.
was
yeah.
Joey's public defender when he didn't have his license.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And now the mayor's riding dirty, so I
remember
think
him
that's
as
a
a
funny
public
joke.
defender.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I'm just throwing this in, which is an ecosystem rights law that just turns Maui into a big honey trap for people who would come here and just collapse ecosystems. So, yeah, I know I probably went way over, and I apologize for that. The story would be incomplete if it wasn't all told. And yeah, gosh, went way, way over. But
Well,
I hope it was of value.
I'm back at my car where I can have a little bit more controlled environment here. Um, so, uh, first of all, were you trying to present this in some way during your budget testimony?
Yeah, I proposed an amendment that would zero out the lawyers. So legislative, um,
Did they have
just
any lawyers in the budget?
uh, not this budget. And I, of course, am not a legislator, but I had the impression that they could do pretty much anything with reallocating funds, this and that. Maybe that's not true. I said that that money should be allocated to disinfection, getting people sick now, liability, stuff like that.
I don't
And
think anyone understood what you were talking about
yeah, I
until
have
that day when
that.
you testified. So, if I could give you some advice,
Yep.
first of all, I don't understand what you're talking about, other than there's some big ideas that Limu has a role to play in treating wastewater. But I don't, so it needs to be more simply understood, simply illustrated with a diagram, in my opinion. I don't know if you've already explained it to Council Member Cook. Maybe he got it, or one of his aides.
Yeah. If I may, I think Mark has that teed up 2 minutes and I can show you that. But
Okay,
just
yeah. Now I
basically,
can see the screen better too,
yeah,
because
the idea is this. The nitrogen limit is the technical challenge. We have a
uh-huh.
solution. It's Limu and it's
So
actionable.
it's freshwater Limu that
Freshwater stream Limu, like I
that
showed
is
you in the
similar to
videos.
what
Yeah.
is in the streams in East Maui.
Yes.
Yes. And is that Limu able to be easily cultured? Is it temperamental about what kind of water it likes, or will it just grow basically in any kind of water that is more or less fresh water? Is it sensitive to saline levels or whatever?
Yeah, it just goes
Okay.
gangbusters on reuse water. I don't know, Mark, if I could introduce Mark. He is a Sandia PI. Um, would you possibly, well, actually, you can see his background. Um, I'm wondering if you can translate all of this potentially confusing stuff into something succinct from a real expert, because of course, I'm only an enthusiast.
Can I share a screen?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Let's do it that way. Right now it says sharing is not turned on.
Okay, gosh.
There you
All
go.
right, allow.
Oh, it went away.
Okay. Let me find hopefully the right presentation. Probably, nope, that's not, doesn't look like the right one.
There we
Maybe
go.
it is. Is that the correct one? Everybody see a screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
algal turf scrubber, early stage development.
Okay,
Is that the
perfect.
one? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will try and shorten up Travis's presentation down to hopefully about 5 minutes or so. So, Dr. Walter 80 was trying to grow coral at the aquariums at the Smithsonian. Dr. 80 was director of marine research at the Smithsonian. And the problem is, if you've ever had an aquarium at home or anything else, you know the fact that algae have a tendency to um, take over things and water quality deteriorates, and that didn't work very well for the coral. So Dr. 80 went down to the tropics to try and investigate where the nutrient flux was occurring within the algae. So that image you see there are just mats that he had strung, and you can see how good the water quality is, probably similar to what you have out on your part of the world. Um, and what he found was he got incredible growth of attached algae. You refer to it as Limu. I'm going to just keep using attached algae because it's easier for me. So I apologize. So what happened is Dr. 80 demonstrated that this works. Rapid growth, rapid nutrient removal under very low nutrient conditions. That doesn't occur with most plants. When you get to a high water quality, and even though your coastline is polluted, you recognize that that water quality is still pretty good compared to what comes out of your average wastewater treatment plant. So what happens is then in a typical system, you take that water and it could be coming from a wastewater treatment plant. It could become simply from an impaired surface water.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets treated, and I'm going to show you in a second what this middle system looks like. And then it goes back out to the receiving water body.
So does it
Uh,
go into a pipe? Is that what that's portraying there?
no, that's just portraying it
Or
goes
that's a, or is that
from
a
an
column?
impaired source
Uh-huh.
to the treatment system. The treatment system is incredibly simple, as was just described by Travis. This system right here that you see, the rectangular part, that's treating 10 million gallons a day of water
Wow.
in Vero Beach, Florida. And the water concentration, I know you're familiar with wastewater treatment plants, and often they discharge nitrogen at up around 2, 3 milligrams per liter.
Mm-hmm.
The water coming into that system is 0.95 milligrams per liter nitrogen. And we're removing nitrogen and phosphorus from that system. And so that's the unique character of this technology. So let me quickly just describe what Travis said. Travis pointed out that you're simply introducing water onto a flat plane. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
You could literally do this on any surface. This image that you see is high density polyethylene. This image is what they converted to, which is all of it's just roughened concrete. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what Travis mentioned, that it's simply 10 acres. This is a second facility. This actually takes canal water that's at a similar concentration to the other one I described, and it takes the reverse osmosis reject water from the adjacent drinking water facility, and it treats it because it kept failing for toxicity when they tested it with certain species native to the area. So all that's happening.
Hold on 1 minute. So you're saying there's an RO plant near here,
Yep,
and the RO plant then discharges the brine
yep,
water
yes,
solution.
ma'am.
It goes into that canal, and then in that canal, where
No,
is the
no,
algae?
it literally comes directly, it's adjacent. It literally pumps. There's about 400 to 600,000 gallons a day that comes in here.
Yeah.
This facility right now is treating, it's set for 10 million, but they've lowered it down to about 7 million. So about 10% of it is RO reject. The rest is treating canal water.
Okay. And it just comes in a pipe,
Yes,
and
you see, in this case, it's a concrete flume, and
it's
then it
concrete
just
flume.
discharges
Okay.
out.
But what's in the flume? Just the water, or is the algae in the flume?
It's just a structure. There's nothing there. It's just a
Okay.
conveyance method.
So it just discharges out through those pipes, and then in the big flat surface that it discharges to, is that where the algae is?
Yes, it is. It grows attached to the surface.
Okay.
And
Now I'm
so,
beginning to understand. That's what you've made it much clearer.
okay. So this is an image of the first facility, and that algae that you see growing, there was nothing introduced. That's all native algae. And that image was taken about 2 weeks to 3 weeks after water was turned on. Nothing was done. All we did was turn on the water.
So you're saying the algae was already in the water?
It's present in the water. It's moved by spores through the air. Yes.
So it was present in the water from the canal or present in the water from the RO plant?
Highly unlikely from the RO reject water.
I mean, I'm trying to fathom this, Mark. Okay, so yeah, so
No.
it's present in the canal water because the canal is, draining some sort of landform of some sort.
Correct. But go stick your dog bowl outside and see how quickly you get algae growing on it, or have your roof, watch how quickly you get algae and biofilm growing on your roof, and there's no stream pouring that water in.
Yeah,
It's ubiquitous, and some of these species are going to be ubiquitous. So some of the species present in Florida are going to be present in the Soviet Union and in Hawaii and in Africa.
So then, do you need to go and find stream limu and bring it and introduce it, or
No.
basically is water itself just going to have
Correct.
those spores in it?
Correct. And Sandia and other researchers are trying to identify and optimize. Here's the challenge with that. Mother Nature's been working on this 3 billion years. And so you try and introduce the plant organism that you want to grow, it's highly unlikely it's going to outcompete whatever Mother Nature determines is optimal.
I'm with you there. Yeah, Mother Nature has a very good quality control system, and yeah.
And if you look at algae all over the world, they go through cycles. So even on these systems, now your system will be different because even in Florida, we have cooler weather than in the winter than we do during the summer. So our water temperatures might dip to 10 degrees centigrade during the winter, and it'll shift. So some of the greens will become more dominated by diatoms. So it does change, and I'm sure the same thing will happen with your community.
Well, we have like a natural wetlands here, Kealia Pond, that is famous for its algae growth, but it's not considered a beneficial thing. It's considered that it smothers the oxygen in the water quality.
Well, if we put too many nutrients in a water, then yes, you could consider it. But just as a background, my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in wildlife biology. I got involved because I wanted to make a difference, and somehow or another, I got myself sidetracked into doing nutrient pollution control with aquatic plants about 35 years ago. So. All of these systems from an ecological perspective, there's nutrient rich systems that are natural, but most of them are a result of a bit too much human activity. Whether it's fertilizer on our yard
or something. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So what you see there is the attached, and we'll use Travis's term, Limu there, but that right there is Rhizoclonium and Cladophora, but there's probably 100 species or more sitting in his hand.
Wow.
So, it's going to be a diverse community and it's going to change. And so the way the system is harvested is simply now we've changed protocol from the date of this image. The water gets turned off, and the individual just takes a tractor and he pushes it to the side. And so here's an image of the current facility. This facility pushes it to the middle and then moves it to a collection point. The new facility that's being designed in North Carolina, we're actually going to push it to the side and we're going to immediately convert it to compost. And so it'll simply be, you know, any operator, he doesn't need to have a PhD in biology. In fact, these guys, when they're not doing this, they're usually working on pipes at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that this algae uh, forms naturally, and then it removes the uh, pollutants or the nitrogen, phosphorus, and
Carbon,
then as part of its life cycle, you harvest it.
correct.
Mhm.
Every 7 to 14 days.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
And if you don't harvest, then it becomes non-beneficial, I assume.
No. What it does is it starts to slough. And so I have this dream, and I just haven't got enough researchers to do the work, and I'm not doing that kind of research right as of the moment. But I would love to know if you could literally operate one of these systems with robots that only periodically go out. You end up with a higher density, the top shades the bottom, some of it sloughs off. And is there a way to then just have a polishing pond that captures it, and maybe every year or two you go in and clear out the solids from the polishing pond? But what you've done is you've accelerated the removal to very low concentrations. Phytoplankton doesn't grow at this rate. So attached algae, if you think about it, phytoplankton's floating around in water and they're trying to get their carbon and their nitrogen and their phosphorus, but unless it bumps up against them, they're going to go hungry. In this system, the algae's in a fixed position and water's flowing over it. So you've got a carbon burger and phosphorus burger, you know, they get to eat all day long.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because of the water movement over the cells, they grow at a much more rapid rate.
So the secret is not just the presence of the water, but the movement of the water.
Correct. Correct. Because you're
This is all
exposing it.
very helpful to understand,
Yes.
and like you say, very simple, but I think it needs to be explained in those simple terms, rather than in a broader sense of, wow, there's this algae and it really does amazing things and everything. I think people need to know, so how does that happen, a little bit. But you did mention that it is harvested sometime and used to create some sort of a biomass that can be turned into fuel.
Yes, Travis mentioned the fuel, and a lot of people like the fuel because of the sex appeal. I'm kind of a real world guy because we've been doing this for 30 years. And the right now, the easiest, best way to manage it is to convert it into a compost.
Yeah.
And what happens is, don't think of it as a compost. Think of it as I have no idea. I know nothing about how many plant nurseries or other opportunities there are in your region of the world. I don't know if you pay a premium for organic soil, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture looked at the material and said, hold on a second. Give us some of that material. We want to test it for container media. In other words, what you grow nursery plants in.
Right.
And here's an example in this image of the USDA work that looks as CA is composted algae. The one next to it is peat moss based. It outperformed peat moss by a significant fraction. And they did studies. They looked at the number of blooms. They looked at greenness. They did a consumer survey, everything. It was far superior. So I would recommend for you to keep this a simple closed loop system. You simply grow the algae that's either going to grow in a controlled system or it's going to grow on your coast and mess with your tourism and screw up your environment. Algae's growing one way or the other.
Yeah.
So you're going to grow algae. It's just when it's out on the coastline, not so easy to capture it back in. What we're going to do here is in this system, we're going to grow the algae in a controlled system and then convert it into a product that the local communities, local nurseries, I don't know how much agriculture takes place in your area, whether or not
We have a huge amount of agriculture. We have a Central Valley that's 36,000 acres, of which about 12,000, it used to be a sugarcane plantation, about 12,000 of it has been replanted. But we have agriculture all over the place. It's trying, it used to be our leading industry. It's trying to hold its own as coming back as at least a second place industry after tourism, because
well,
we
as a
import a lot of our food and we import a lot of our soil building amendments. We do have compost facilities on Oahu and on the Big Island that manufacture compost. We have one compost facility here that actually bags compost that you can, purchase, or you can go and drive and fill your truck with it. But we have, for instance, one landowner is dedicating 800 acres in the Central Plain as an agricultural preserve in perpetuity. 300 acres are already under cultivation, and it would be great if there was just this source for them,
Yeah, and so I don't know the local, but that to me is what you would do. You would take that waste nitrogen and phosphorus that's coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, you convert it into a bioproduct, and then you find the very best use for it relative to your particular local community.
We
And it's
Right.
that
also,
simple.
um,
Right.
yeah, we also have a proposal for this power plant. Let's see, it's a little complicated. The simple version is, for years and years, our local utility has proposed a brand new power plant in central Maui. At first, it was going to be diesel fuel. That was pushed back on. Then the agreement was it would be, some sort of renewable fuel. And now it's at a point where it's being discussed actually constructing it. This was 20 years ago when it was in the land use concept. Now the construction is at our local public utilities commission, and they are now proposing to do a diesel plant because they can't find enough biofuel to have it be a renewable energy plant. So I don't know if this would produce enough
No,
viable
no,
biofuel to make any difference, but that is something that is, being discussed right now at our Public Utilities Commission.
If I
yeah, let
may,
me.
we probably would not be making biofuel from this facility on Maui, but there's a nuance which we are just demonstrating a system that potentially could be scaled in other places, which is a different set of value. But yeah, I don't think we're going to be making biofuels in Maui. But I
The
just want
vol
to
Okay.
be really sensitive because we've had you a lot longer than we promised. I just want to check in, Lucienne. Um, if I may just uh, say this is the idea, and what my ask for you is I'm plan to send you this presentation. If you agree that this is worth looking at by anyone involved in the case, I just want to add that the person funding this research has offered to continue to fund and maybe there's no indication that they wouldn't in fact fund the entire project.
Uh-huh. Well, that's cool.
So I do want to
Well,
let you go if
I
you
think it'd be
are
really
done.
helpful for our side to say that there is a solution and you should look into it. We might be told that it's theoretical. So I'd like seeing these pictures in Florida, which show that it's not theoretical at
Yep.
all. It's actually being used in tropical places, not completely dissimilar to ourselves. My suggestion is, does it would require funding in the budget, I think, to convert to this. Would it be conceived as a pilot project at first to use a portion of the effluent just to see what happens? Or
Yes.
would it be, how would it be structured?
Yeah, we have written the entire motion with a 6-year plan to scale it up incrementally and 1 year to prove that it can continuously operate. But I'll just put it this way. I would just say at this point, the best idea is to hand over our fully developed motion with all the detail and maybe let you go because we've had you for so long today, more than we
Mhm.
promised. And we'll, if you would care to look at it or even just forward it to the appropriate people with a message that we're standing by.
Did
And
an attorney draw up the motion?
um, actually, anyone could. We actually could as a non-party, but I thought it was very important to coordinate with the parties and not just like
Well,
drop a
no,
motion.
no, I understand, but I just asked that if you had an attorney draw it up, or did you just draw it up in-house?
I just did the research, so I don't know how viable
Uh-huh.
it is, but it's passed all of our reviews. So, but I think it's
So
the
it,
good
it,
moment to pass it off to actual
yeah,
voters.
it might need to be restructured in some way so it fits in, what we, in other words, what we were granted in the case.
That's exactly why I contacted you, which is to,
And our attorneys know how that works. But I will say that if this requires any county funding, doing it during the budget process is especially starting at this point, is very confusing for the council. What you do is you wait till they pass the budget and that everything settles down. And you might even have to wait till after the next election. We might have a progressive majority back if Bobby Pahia gets elected.
that'd be so
And
cool.
then
Right.
you just do a budget amendment.
Cool.
And a budget amendment, they're only talking about that, so they can really give it their attention.
Got it. I appreciate that
And
advice.
that's done all the time. I mean, I've been 30 years at this, county council process of trying to get them to do different things. And I'm still trying to understand it, but that's one word of advice that I would give
I
you.
appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
do appreciate everyone taking all this time, and especially Lucienne. I know maybe the lead up story was confusing, but I hope you know I was prompting you for the curiosity, and I just dropped in the world top expert, and I appreciate your patience with the process.
Your experts of all stripes have been very
Yeah,
appreciated.
I,
And
they're great.
I think that, any presentation that's made to the console should include either, like you'd work with Council Member Johnson or someone else who was sympathetic, and you'd have some of these folks come in by Zoom as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wait, well, I'll send over the
Yeah.
documents. Does anybody have any closing thoughts before we let this lovely lady go? Thank you for your
Mm.
time on this May Day, full moon, Lay
Oh,
Day.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I would just like to reiterate some of the things that Mark had said about how algae is very biodiverse and how, like, a given strain of algae might be perfectly excellent at, 21 degrees C, but, when things cool off, maybe there's a different strain, that works better at 20 degrees.
And will those strains just appear
And
themselves,
you
do you
simply let the
think?
Limu decide.
I see. Okay. Because I believe that they have some of these kind of algae-based treatment plants. I think they have one in Arcata, California, is my recollection. We may even have one on Molokai. We have a treatment plant on Molokai that's just biological. So I don't know if it's algae or other biological means, but it
There's a
just,
number of biological systems, and traditionally, the algae that has been used is the kind that doesn't grow rapidly at very low concentrations. The suspended cells with lots of mechanical interventions to keep things. They're just
yeah,
expanding what happens in the laboratory, but
yeah,
without realizing, the laboratory is a small microcosm of reality, and what happens outside. Inside the laboratory, you're just, it's like a baby
Limited.
in a bassinet. It's getting,
Limited. Yes.
formula, it's getting electric blankets. Of course, it works great in the lab. You
yeah,
put it
yeah.
outside, there's
Real
wolves,
life.
there's all sorts of, extra UV, who knows what.
Well, I liked what Mark said, and I think that's a take-home message that in general, effluent always has high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. So you can either feed some algae out in the ocean to try to clean it up, which just grows algae in our case that smothers our reef, or you can do that on land and have a useful byproduct of it and send cleaner water into the ocean, which is what the ocean actually is. The ocean ecosystems here in Hawaii are actually adapted to is that, you know, low nutrient counts.
Yep.
And Lucienne, it also makes reuse sustainable over not decades, but centuries.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Right, it's a long-term permanent solution if it's implemented effectively.
Yes.
when you then reuse the water on the land, it has only moderate amounts of phosphorus or nitrogen, if any, in it, and so it doesn't build up in your soil and everything too. Yeah,
Well,
which is a
think of it this
concern,
way:
you know.
if you treat the water with algae down to the point where even the algae can't eat anymore, there's you know
Yeah,
there's not even enough nitrogen for the algae.
right,
There's
right.
nothing. There's nothing
Right.
that will eat that water. That's,
Pure water.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what about the people who say, yeah, bring that nitrogen water over here where we're doing agriculture, and then we don't have to put any fertilizer on? Is that a valid thing, or is that just a wives' tale?
Even that will reach its limit at some point if the mass balance does not balance out. If it's accumulating even at a small degree, it will catch up with you.
Okay, good to know. Well,
and
this has been
also if you just
wonderful
add high
education.
nutrient water in liquid form to dirt, you know it tends to percolate
Goes
down
into the
below where the
groundwater,
roots
yeah,
are going to find
and the ocean.
themselves.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the
Not
problem.
it
That's
keeps
the problem
soaking
we're
down
fighting in
the
Iowa.
groundwater.
Our
Or then
farmers
there's a
pump
big storm.
nitrogen on, and it
Yep.
just goes right in the groundwater and right into the streams.
right. So not much ends up in the soil. A lot ends up in the water table.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. You might if you did very carefully, you know, drip irrigation, you know, and monitored everything exquisitely, you know, maybe that might work. But
Yeah.
why go to all that effort? Why not just easily clean the water up and not you know, not pretend that your non-solution is a solution?
Well, we've really got to do something about Kihei and Lahaina. I mean, you know, they are both having, well, Kahului is too, profound impacts on the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
Well,
I don't want
mahalo,
to keep
you
you any longer.
guys.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Lucienne.
Mahalo.
This is
Yes.
actually the
so
first
much.
time
Nice to
I've
meet you.
spent all this time with you, Lucienne, and I just thank you so much. I've seen in testimony. I just want to point out you were like the only earnest testifier for Bill 52 when it first came up. So this is like a full circle moment. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know, even though I have zero engineering background, I'm an English major, an anthropology major. I've had to educate myself, like any good activist, to speak a little bit to this and a little bit to that. So, but it's important, you know. Water is water, whether it's wastewater, stream water. I live in East Maui. Stream water is our lifeblood, but we need to take care of our oceans too. You know, we need to
Yes.
take care of it all. Yeah.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Yeah.
Ahuiho.
Aloha. And
Ahuiho.
I'll send the materials.
Okay.
Malama po no.
All right.
Malama Pono.
Mahalo.
Nice
Yes.
to meet you, Uncle.
Yes. Same here. Awesome.
Bye. Aloha.